This is Africa in 10 minutes, where we bring to you the trending business news of last week as reported on Footprint to Africa. I'm Chamaka J. Uwadoka, and on the headlines this week, the Advanced Maize Seed Adoption Program for maize farmers exceeds target by 150% in Ethiopia. Kenya seeks to increase exports to Benin, and South Africa launches high-speed trains. And now the news in details. The Advanced Maize Seed Adoption Program, also known as AMSAP, created by the USAID to boost maize productivity among smallholder farmers and increase food production for Ethiopian communities, has exceeded its goal by 150%. This was done in collaboration with DuPont and the Ethiopian government. USAID and DuPont said as part of America's Feed the Future initiative, the program's objective was to sustainably increase more than 100,000 smallholder farmers' yields and enhance income potential, while also improving nutrition outcomes in 16 districts across 3 regions across Ethiopia. The program has already helped 250,000 smallholder farmers in 53 districts to adopt new technology and implement smarter agricultural practices, far surpassing its 2018 target goal. Prior to this program, farmers were harvesting 2.2 metric tons per hectare, and in districts where AMSAP was administered, they now harvest 7.5 metric tons per hectare. Since its launch 4 years ago, participating farmers have achieved nearly 300% increase on average in their maize yield productivity. They are also more efficiently connected to markets, which has helped boost incomes as much as $1,500 per farmer per year. Moving on, the Information, Communications and Technology Cabinet Secretary of Kenya said government, policymakers and international organizations can use postal networks as a platform to design strategies to foster financial inclusion in Africa. He added that posts are better positioned to bank women, the poor, the less educated, and those in the informal sector that are underserved by other financial institutions. It will be recalled that Footprint to Africa early last week reported that South Africa would also adopt this strategy, as it was announced that the South African Postal Office plans to roll out banking products and services in 2018 as part of government's efforts to reach the unbanked and low-end market. This is all in a bid to increase financial inclusion to ensure the socio-economic transformation of the continent. In tech news, an expert telecom transaction advisor has predicted a surge in investments, mergers and acquisitions across the African telecommunications sector following rising interest in broadband expansion. According to Enda Hardiman, managing partner Hardiman Telecommunications, African mobile telecom operators, infrastructure owners and service providers are ramping up investments and targeting acquisitions across the region to meet the surge in demand for connectivity. He said the African TMT vista remains extraordinarily vibrant. Fundamental demand is not in doubt, and neither is exponential growth in demand. This is reflected by telecommunications operators seeking economies of scale. This holds across the mobile sector, the tower sector, and the broadband connectivity sector. In trade news, Kenya is looking to increase its exports to Benin and to expand the products from the current offering of medicines, sugar, confectionery, jute, and other textiles to include coffee, tea, and fresh produce. Exports from Kenya to Benin was valued at $4 million in 2015. President Kenyatta pitched for the expansion during talks with Benin's President Patrice Talon, focused on deepening economic ties between Kenya and Benin. Kenyatta urged the expansion of intra-Africa trade, including improved air services to better link African cities. He said the key to decrease dependence on Western markets is optimal utilization of domestic markets, which in turn boosts intra-African trade. Current trade between Kenya and the West African nation is limited due to the geographical distance between them and the absence of direct transport between the two countries. President Talon encouraged President Kenyatta to lead a continental campaign for greater access into African cities by African airlines. The two leaders explored other ways by enhancing bilateral relations between their countries, agreeing to cooperate in the areas of training and capacity. Great news for young players in the agricultural sector, as the African Development Bank and its partners have instituted the Agri-Pitch Entrepreneurship Program for African youth aged 18 to 35 years, allowing them to pitch their innovations. The purpose of which is to encourage young people in the continent to take interest in agriculture. The top 3 competitors will be invited to present their proposals and receive an award during a session titled Africa is Cool, Engaging Africa's Youth at the annual African Heads of States meeting facilitated by the African Development Bank in India. In partnership with the African Development Institute, the African Development Bank will also send winners to Korea for a study visit. With the continent aiming to feed itself and eradicate malnutrition by 2025 and the current average age of African farmers being 60 years, agriculture holds the potential for gainful employment and wealth creation for Africa's youth. Cooperation in export, import, investment, business information and other commerce-related activities between South Africa and China is set to improve following the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between Johannesburg Chamber of Commerce and Industry and China Council for Promotion of International Trade. It is said that the MOU will provide opportunities for joint ventures to benefit members of both organizations. Chief Director of Investment Promotions at South Africa's Department of Trade and Industry said there are also great opportunities for South African and Chinese business people to explore cooperation in infrastructure construction projects such as roads, railways, ports, power generation, airports, and housing. Moving now to Uganda, President Museveni has cautioned private sector investors on seeking quick returns from investment in national infrastructure. The president gave the advice while speaking as the chief panelist on the subject Agenda 2063 Infrastructure Update at the opening of the World Economic Forum on Africa in Durban, South Africa. The president pointed out that most African governments had agreed on private sector-led growth, which must be supported by infrastructure to ensure low cost of production, cheap electricity, affordable transport, cheap credit, among others. According to him, good infrastructure projects, therefore, are those that do not result in high costs for the private sector. Citing the example of a dam, he urged the private sector to not be in a hurry to recoup their money. He said this will help economies develop so that they will be competitive. And finally this week, President Zuma has unveiled new high-speed trains that will offer faster journey times and greater reliability. The president launched the new Metro commercialized full train service as part of government's transport modernization program and massive infrastructure development at the Prasa House in Hatfield, Pretoria. The 20-year modernization program is aimed at revitalizing the rail industry through training and skills development for both Prasa employees and young people interested in railways. The program will also focus on upgrading the current rail infrastructure while continuing to deliver new trains for community use. That wraps up the trending news of the week. Stay tuned for a recap of the headlines. The Advanced Maize Seed Adoption Program for maize farmers exceeds targets by 150%. In Kenya, stakeholders are advised to leverage postal networks to foster financial inclusion. African telcos poised for surge in investments, mergers and acquisitions. Kenya seeks to increase exports to Benin. The African Development Bank plans big for Africa's best young agri-innovators. South Africa and China sign MOU to enhance trade cooperation. President Museveni urges the private sector to not be in a hurry to recoup from investment. And South Africa launches high-speed trains. To keep up with the trending business news in Africa, stay connected. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and connect with us on LinkedIn. These news and reports are called From Footprint to Africa. For daily updates and more business news in Africa, log on to www.footprinttoafrica.com today. Footprint to Africa, business news made in Africa by Africans.